country.
Let's get to Keystone then. The Keystone pipeline was rejected initially. Now the new proposal from TransCanada is going. You're both Nebraska residents. You live in California now, Charlie, but you're from Nebraska, but you're also business people. The new route, and when we get more details, we'll know, but would you be for the Keystone pipeline if it doesn't threaten the aquifer and it doesn't threaten the areas that are culturally sensitive and environmentally sensitive?
I'm not an expert, but it generally sounds like it makes sense to me. I mean, there are an awful lot of pipelines running in the United States, and net, they've certainly been a huge plus for the country. And I don't know all the details on the aquifer or anything, but based on what I know, I would say that it makes sense.
Were you then disappointed when Keystone was rejected? It could mean so many jobs.
Yeah. Well, I don't think that issue's done with yet.
Right.
The jobs aspect of it is not the big aspect. The real question is what it will do for the country over many years and what the drawbacks are. But you can build anything and it will create jobs. But that doesn't mean it's a good idea.
Bill, you're invested in alternative energy, and some of it a certain subsector of nuclear, but looking at natural gas. Wow, it is so unbelievably inexpensive now and cleaner than oil. Do you think that this country should be converting to nat gas burning cars and trucks?
Well, natural gas, unfortunately, the energy density, unless you take it to a very low temperature, is much lower. So there's a lot of innovators looking at how can we do that better. There are ways of converting natural gas to liquids. But those factories are very expensive, so people are going to try to innovate there. It's such good news that we have inexpensive natural gas. It's most natural that we get the benefit of that in the power generation sector as we're turning over our power plants. But because the price is so attractive on an equivalent energy basis, there will be innovations that move it into parts of the transport sector. That's very exciting.
Charlie, you said on stage this weekend, we should not look for energy independence. We should use up the bad guys' energy.
Or the good guys like Canada.
Or the good guys, but conserve our own.
Right. That to me is an obvious conclusion, considering how precious this stuff is going to get. Trying to use our whole supplies, our whole reserves as fast as possible is insane.
But you could arguably stick it to certain Arab nations who despise the United States and they despise Israel and make life difficult for everybody by completely turning off the spigot, not using their oil, and then you hit them financially, no?
My desire to do spiteful things to the Arab nations is zero. And as long as they want to sell their oil, and I'm delighted to see us buy it rather than use our own. I think that adults suffer now to be better off later. And when you save your own oil and buy the other fellows, that's what you're doing.
You drove an electric car, you said, the most recent BYD. Do you own an electric car?
No.
What do you drive, Charlie?
A Mercedes.
Mercedes. What do you drive, Warren?
Cadillac.
Cadillac. Bill, what car do you usually use?
I have a Mercedes.
A Mercedes. All right, two Mercedes. Mercedes is buying advertising right now on Fox Business, so thank you very much. We hope. You both took swipes at business school this weekend. Which I thought was interesting. You don't think that they're teaching the right things. Warren, you went to business school.
Apparently.
Columbia.
And I had a fabulous teacher. I went there because, two fabulous teachers, and I went there because two people that I really wanted to sit at their feet, and I got a chance to do that.
And you're generous to business schools. You host more than 40 of them every year to
48.
let them come here, and 48, let them come here and take questions, and that's certainly wonderful. But what is it that business schools are doing wrong?
Well, in the investment field, I've thought that over the last 40 or so years that a great many business schools were teaching nonsense. But that doesn't mean they were in other aspects of other majors within the business schools.
Bill, Charlie, would either of you make a decision to hire somebody based on whether the candidate had gone to business school? Bill?
Well, if they're a young person, that's a recent part of their resume, and so it might give them some valuable skills. I don't think anybody's saying that business school doesn't have some merit to it. It's just how you do investment valuation. As they've tried to apply mathematical techniques, they've claimed more than they should for these techniques.
I hired a young woman a couple of years ago out of business school, and She would have been very good naturally, but I'm sure she was better because she'd gone to business school. But I didn't hire her for what she'd learned about investments in the business school.
Charlie?
Well, I said that I thought the business schools were improving, which I think is true, including in the investment field. But they had a lot of room for it.
The Buffett rule. It's getting so much attention. Charlie, what did you think when Warren pushed for the Buffett rule and has been quite vocal about it?
Well, it's caused me some lack of popularity at my country club, and I'm willing to bear it in order to participate in Berkshire. I think it's fine if the rich people pay more taxes.
Warren, you know, what?
I think it's fine if he pays more taxes too.
Do you see the side of it that the wealthy are the ones who are paying the biggest amount of taxes, and that a large percentage of people don't pay any tax aside from sales tax, et cetera? There's that whole argument.
Well, the incentives, payroll taxes.
Yeah,
payroll taxes are $800 billion of a $2.3 trillion revenue thing. So payroll taxes are a huge element of our revenue base.
Charlie?
Well, I don't like the idea that nobody but the rich should pay taxes because the country can't work on taxes from the rich people. It won't produce enough, and it would have terrible economic effects. So I don't like this politics of envy style of discourse, but I think the rich people should cheerfully pay more taxes.
We already talked to Warren about the developments in Europe this morning with France turning socialist, with Francois Hollande, who's the socialist president. The U.S. banks, Warren, you said we're in a far, far better position, but both you and Charlie sat here a year ago on Fox Business and really were quite concerned about what would happen with Europe. Can the European banks, or at least some of them, are they so weak that they can somehow systemically negatively affect U.S. banks or banking system here, Charlie?
I don't think it'll have that much effect on us, but I do think they still have a terrible problem.
Warren?
Yeah, I agree with that. But obviously, it would have some effect. But I do not think our fate is in the hands of European banks, and I'd worry very much if it were.
Well, they're all very cheap. They're
not necessarily cheap.
So you're not considering buying it?
There's not a European bank that I'm looking at.
Not a European bank you're looking at. Internationally, by virtue of the fact that you're huge in insurance in this company, we cannot ignore the risk that is lurking out of Iran and its plans for nuclear dependence and perhaps eventually dominance. Are any of your insurance companies writing any policies related to that risk of Iran?
We exclude nuclear, but that's been true generally for a long time. We exclude. And the nuclear risk is one that all the resources of the insurance industry can't handle. So it would be folly to write it because people wouldn't get the protection they thought they were getting. So nuclear's out of the question.
Charlie, are you concerned about what is happening in Iran? And do you see an eventual military tension between U.S.-Iran or Iran and Israel, which would eventually perhaps draw in the United States?
Well, I don't think I know much about how it's going to work, and I am deeply suspicious of other people who claim to know what's going to happen exactly. I think the future is often very hard to know.